A very good morning to you. Morning Live is at Nasrec. We continue our rolling coverage of the ANC's 54th National Conference. And since normally we say the day after the night before, but it's been one night, day, morning, all rolled into one because the delegates continue to vote, don't they?
It's quite incredible. To find the words to describe what it's like here is very, very difficult. But I think everybody that is, or that has been here since the start of it and is still continuing to carry on reporting on the event, and also the delegates that are part of it and those people that have finally got to cast their vote. I mean, it's an incredible atmosphere that no matter which direction this goes in, you are a part of history. And this certainly is the sentiment that's being felt here amongst absolutely everybody, is that history is being made here in whichever direction the vote goes. So besides the voting process, which is currently underway right now, if you have just tuned into us and you are hoping to find out who the president of the ANC is, that result is still a good few hours away. We've only gone through about 5 of the provinces so far. The last report is that we still had 4 more to go through, which accounted for well over 50% of the delegates that still need to vote. That's minus all the leagues, that's minus all of the NEC members and the PEC as well. So there's still a long way to go. But what is going to happen this morning is there's going to be those business breakfasts. There's been a breakfast held every single morning. Lindiwe Sisulu is the, am I right? No, is it Lindiwe Sisulu? It is. It's Lindiwe Zulu. I beg your pardon. Please forgive me. That's the correction I need to make. It's Lindiwe Zulu who's going to be the guest speaker at this particular breakfast. We saw the very first breakfast that they had was our finance minister. He was the guest speaker there. Then the next day, who was the guest speaker? Do you remember?
Rob Davies.
Thank you, Rob Davies, and then it's Lindiwe Zulu. These breakfasts, they're obviously organised by the Progressive Business Forum, and it's just an opportunity for business and government to come together and share knowledge. Is that the basic idea behind them?
Well, basically, yeah, because it's the ANC's opportunity to reach out to potential business partners or investors, in the economy, because we know our economy is suffering through lots of setbacks. So just to give more direction in terms of ANC policy around economic policy for the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it an opportunity for business to lobby government as well, I would imagine, and endear themselves? You want to sponsor these kinds of things and be seen to be supporting. And the president himself at the dinner before the conference started was saying, no, you must support us. Thank you for your support. So there is this challenge that you almost love to hate and hate to love, but you've got to work together.
You support us, we'll support you, kind of thing.
But that's normal. That's not unusual, because if you look at other political parties globally, you look at the US or the UK, that happens. It's part and parcel of politics. In South Africa, obviously, that also happens. You listen to every Jan 8 statement of the ANC. They do reach out to business. They say, for the country to be stable, you need to help the ANC with the so-called democratic project. Before every election, we've got a number of the big banks, the bigger players like ABSA or the FNB. They normally sponsor political parties just, towards sustaining democracy in the country.
Yeah. I want to bring up something that came out yesterday. In fact, it was one of the very first things that Peter said to me when he saw me this morning. Did you hear? Did you read? Did you see? So I did, and I was also taken aback by this. And let's talk about where South Africa is going now, and you'll understand when I say this. Yesterday, the ANC Women's League president, Bathabile Dlamini, when she was surrounded by some journalists, came out with this phrase, basically saying, guys, please, South Africans must practice forgiveness when it comes to state capture, in the same way they forgave apartheid. Now, I just want to understand the sentiment here. We talk about state capture and we talk about forgiveness. Can we really, honestly, expect this to just go away? Now we've got new leadership. Let's just forget about what happened and move on into a new future. Is this really going to happen, or no? Are there people going to be held accountable for what we've been through?
A prerequisite to forgiveness is accountability and taking responsibility. And what we have seen from that faction is first denial that there is even existence of state capture and vilification, in fact, where they try to actually come up with a counter narrative. So that, for example, there has been white monopoly capital that benefits from the system. That has been known throughout history. But what was bad about it being used as a counter narrative for state capture was to create the impression by that faction that state capture is acceptable because behind it because it's done elsewhere. So I don't think that's a copying out of the need to be responsible and accountable in government. It's unfortunate.
Whoever wins this, they're going to have to deal with it because the public demand it.
Yeah.
What would they need to do quickly to gain people's assurance? The inquiry is on the horizon, but I guess much more needs to be done with greater urgency.
Well, first of all, it's important that the outcome of this conference first be seen to be some corrective measure of sorts. So depending on who wins, that will be the first indication for South Africans that we've started the pathway. There has unfortunately going to be need to fire those politicians who have done wrong and make sure that you restore confidence in institutions. The boards of state-owned enterprises that have, been allegedly involved in state capture, there's got to be decisive action there. There are ministers that need to be fired next week that have been champions of corruption and have allowed it to continue. So it's going to be a murky process, but it has to be done. There has to be strong leadership on the part of the ANC. In fact, the biggest is, for me, recalling President Jacob Zuma. Politically, it may not be good, but from a public perceptions point of view, the strongest indication of the commitment of this faction to dealing with state capture will be to recall the president.
All right, guys, we're going to keep you on. Obviously, Ranesh, I know you want to add something to this, but we just want to get a very quick update now. We've got our reporter, Ayanda Mplongo. She's just outside of the studio that we're broadcasting from, and she's going to be chatting to ANC spokesperson Khusela Sangoni to find out exactly how far they are with processes. Ayanda, good morning to you.
Leanne, a very good morning to you and to Peter. Yeah, we're coming from outside the lawns here at Nasrec, where just behind us it's getting a little bit busy. We saw some of the delegates milling around. Of course, I would presume that it's those that have finished their voting, which started late yesterday, around midnight, in fact. Already about 6 provinces have voted, and the last we checked, there was 4 provinces remaining. But to take us through what happened last night, as well as what we can expect today, I'm joined by the ANC's communications manager, Khusela Sangoni. Khusela, good morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, Ayanda, and thank you so much for having us.
I believe it's been a very, very long night for you, having started, throughout the day yesterday, voting starting just after midnight. Just take us through what happened last night. And we understand that you've been able now to finish, 6 provinces have voted.
Indeed, it has been quite a busy night. And you remember that for the purposes of conference, we don't have 9 provinces, but we've got 12. So it's your 9 geographical provinces plus the 3 leagues of the African National Congress. So where we're sitting, only 3 are remaining, being Gauteng, Gauteng, Mpumalanga, and the Eastern Cape. KwaZulu-Natal, which is our biggest province, is currently voting now. So we expect the process to proceed as smoothly as it has been going, and we want to commend the delegates of the African National Congress. I think from day one, they have exercised maximum restraint. They have been extremely disciplined, and the conference is proceeding very well.
Yesterday, during the nominations process, there were several matters that were brought and raised by the delegates on the floor, but you were able to get through nominations of the 6 officials. Any problems throughout the night? Did anyone raise any concerns, any objections, even relating to the voting process itself?
Well, we must remember that conference is the highest decision-making body of conference. And I know yesterday there were quite a few, of the African National Congress, there were quite a few people who were shocked by the robustness with which we engaged in the plenary, especially during the open session. But this is in the nature of the African National Congress. So So we would have seen issues that would have come up when the Electoral Commission, for example, proposed that there should not be any lists that are taken into the ballot box or, the voting process. And delegates had very strong views on how that would be carried. But, I mean, those are some of the issues that will be finalized today when we look at the additional members. There have been no incidences that have been reported as at this point. In fact, the voting has actually gone quite quickly, because we were expecting that for every group of 200, it would take us about 3 hours to get through that. But, with 3 provinces to go, we're sure around midday or so we should be done.
And in terms of the actual process, yesterday there was discussions that they have to delegates would have to produce, of course, their tags as well as the identity. There was also in the build-up questions raised, and some provinces suggesting that cell phones will not be allowed. Just take us through what happened when they actually are now walking into the voting booths.
All right. So the Electoral Commission, which is made up of elders, stalwarts of the ANC, chaired by Comrade Sindiso Mfenyan, oversees the elections, which are conducted by an independent body. All of this is done to ensure absolute integrity of the process. Now, when delegates go into the voting booth, they must produce their identification, which is looked at together with the accreditation card from conference. This confirms one as a voting delegate for conference. They are then marked on their thumbs with the ink that is normally used for elections. Then they proceed. So that has been a smooth process. Delegates have abided by the guidance that is given by the elections agency, and we expect them to be completed. I think there's some who are actually moving through to voting now as well.
All right, Khusela, thank you so much for your time. We will be catching up with you throughout the course of the day just to get an update on what the process. Three provinces left to go. I guess in terms of time frame, it's still too early to tell what time it might be done. I know that everyone, the delegates, the ANC members are outside. The South Africa is waiting for the announcement of those results.
Indeed. But I think also most importantly, the really important discussions around policy will get underway this morning. So we're going to be starting with the commissions from 9 o'clock, and voting will continue on the sidelines of that. And that announcement that we're all waiting for will happen, I'm sure, in the early part of the afternoon.
All right, very interesting. Lots more to expected today as the conference continues. Khusela, thank you so much for your time. ANC's Communications Manager, Khusela, just taking us through what happened, of course, last night and what we can expect today. We're going to leave things here now and go back to the studio.